I consider mini Metroidvanias to be some of my favorite video games of all time. Hollow Knight, Ori, Fist, Metroid Dread. I completely understand that these types of games aren't for everyone, but they are absolutely for me. And unfortunately, this game already had so much going against it. Prince of Persia fans want their Sands of Time remake. People are sadly less into 2D games, thinking they aren't worth the money. And the final nail in the coffin was that this was being done by Ubisoft, our most beloved and trusted gaming company right now. Right? And to add on top of all of that, they then announced that this is going to be a Metroidvania. Perfect. Well, to the people who had no hope in this game and thought it was doomed for disaster, I am happy to report you couldn't be more wrong. Prince of Persia will likely remain as one of my favorite video games of this year and may go down as one of my favorite all-time Metroidvanias alongside the likes of Hollow Knight. Yeah. It's that good. There are so many things that this game does right, but I want to start with the strongest aspect. When it comes to a Metroidvania, you must nail this. You cannot have a good Metroidvania with bad combat. You just can't. And luckily, this game's gameplay is absolutely remarkable. And as soon as you are launched into this game, you can feel it immediately. Movement feels good. You have your set of swords, you can slash left and right, directionally, you can juggle enemies and rise up with them. You have charge attacks, parries, and it all feels wonderful, and this is just your starting gear. Because in typical Metroidvania fashion, you are pretty limited when it comes to your actual abilities at the beginning until you unlock them later on. And I won't spoil some of the in-game ones here, but boy, let me tell you, they are awesome. Throughout my entire runtime, I never felt like I was bored once during the combat. Because besides excellent combat, this was paired with great level design and a ton of enemy variety. And this caused combat to always feel fresh and engaging throughout my roughly 27 hours with the game. And this also relies pretty heavily on their parry system. You've got your normal attacks that you can parry by pressing a certain button like L2 on PS5, and that will fill up your meter faster for your Athra surges, which are kind of your special attacks. And if you parry an enemy after they have this yellow light show up, a really cool animation follows. To me, this is a perfect way to blend both the gameplay and animation. It's never too long or overstays its welcome. It always feels natural. The Metroidvania aspects of this game are so good. I wonder why this franchise wasn't always a Metroidvania. And the map is fairly large and offers such a diverse set of locations and set pieces, but as usual, there will be places in the beginning that are blocked off and you will have to backtrack once you get these new upgrades, such as your bow and arrow, double jump, and at first I was a little concerned because backtracking can really be hit or miss for games like these. At the beginning, there was a really big lack of fast travel, and I was really worried about how all this cleanup was going to work when I got to the end game. But luckily, towards the end, there were a ton of fast travel, secret passages for me to find, and most importantly, lots of loot that was worthy of exploring, such as money, charms, upgrade materials, and I never felt bored when it came to backtracking or looting. And the platforming is also extremely well done, and this really should come to no surprise, because the same team who developed this game made Rayman Legends, which is one of the best platformers ever made. This made traversing the world look and feel so good. As you progress in this game, the platforming only becomes more and more fun, stylish. It's exactly what a good Metroidvania should be. There are some genuinely tough platforming sections in the late game and puzzles that require some real brain power. Now, entering this game, I figured there would be some boss battles, and I honestly had kind of low expectations. I thought they would just be there to get the job done and not really do anything too special. I also could not have been more wrong. The bosses in this game may be one of the biggest highlights of the entire package. There are loads of optional bosses which can provide a decent challenge, but the main bosses will make you absolutely work for your victory, which is something I absolutely love. 2D games can often fall into this trap when it comes to boss battles and just having the player dodge left, right, attack, left, right, attack, and just repeat the same moves over and over again. But man, these bosses literally utilize every inch of space that they have. I love when they go in and out of the 2D frame, above or below you. They require complete precision for victory. And another thing that I personally look for in great boss fights is multi-phase bosses, and this game certainly delivers that. And these are often godlike creatures or even people that you're going up against, and it completely feels like it. Within the great combat system can come these incredible anime-inspired boss battles and cutscenes that just got my freaking blood pumping. I cannot stress enough how good these bosses were, and they even rivaled some of my favorites in Hollow Knight. There were also several upgrades that I received throughout that I thought would just kind of be used for platforming, but they utilized them during the boss battles too, which I thought was amazing. While there may not be as many boss battles here, pretty much every single one of them is good, if not great. I don't think there was a single boss I didn't thoroughly enjoy, except maybe the final boss, and now I can start dipping into the negatives. Metroidvanias can also fall into this trap of making you too overpowered for the final boss due to your mini upgrades, and unfortunately that was kind of exactly what happened here. I won't spoil it, but there are 2 phases for just about every single boss, but in this one there are even more than that, and they are all significantly easier. I mean, I died almost 20 to 25 times in pretty much every other boss, and I was playing on the 3rd difficulty. In the final boss, I literally beat my very first try with little to no issue. I'm not even sure half of my health dropped. I just unfortunately think it failed to deliver the difficult final boss with numerous challenges, but at least the spectacle and story bits were pretty cool. Now compare this to something like Hollow Knight. The true final boss, Radiance, is one of my favorite in the entire game, and the difficulty is absolutely perfect. It requires you to utilize just about every skill at your disposal to achieve victory, and it just feels so rewarding in the end. And I feel like the final boss here was just kind of handed to me, and I personally would have loved to have a little bit more of a challenge because I do think difficulty is kind of important in these types of games. There were also a few bugs that I encountered. Sadly, one of the side missions was completely locked off, and a friend of mine sent me some footage of where he was completely invisible and even invincible, and he was forced to restart the game. Again, in my playthrough, these were super minor and nowhere close to game breaking, but I figured it was worth mentioning. Which also brings me to my last point, which is a slight negative, and that is the story. And do not get me wrong, this story is not even remotely bad. It's just nothing special. It gets the job done with some decent voice acting here and there, but again, I just didn't really feel anything for the characters or the actual plot itself. I think the game sets itself up really strong in the beginning, and I was kind of invested. But once you get kind of midway towards the end, you can definitely tell it starts to fall by the wayside. But let me reiterate, for a game like this, I don't really think it needs to be that strong. I just think they could have done it a little bit better. The gameplay and platforming should absolutely be the strongest part of a Metroidvania, and I can completely confirm that they are. And there isn't really any kind of lore here to chew on like any other games in a genre like Hollow Knight, Ori. So it just leaves a little bit to be desired when we have such intricate worlds from other titles that are similar to it. But I really hope Ubisoft moves towards this direction. I cannot be the only one who is tired of every single one of their games coming out requiring you to put hundreds and hundreds of hours into empty open worlds with boring combat and mindless missions. This is the direction I want to see them go in, smaller and more linear titles. With Prince of Persia being only $50, this is absolutely worth it at full price, and I could not recommend this game more. And just for transparency, I did receive a review copy from Ubisoft, but I bought my own physical copy for $50 so I can actually put my money where my mouth is. If you're a fan of the series, Metroidvanias, I urge you to pick this up and show Ubisoft we demand more quality products like this. I promise you, from one gamer to another, this game absolutely rocks, and it is so close to perfect. But even with the few minor issues I have with it, it never took away from this incredible experience. And I will absolutely be revisiting this game in the near future.